It's 7:07, and I'm going to open Jericho Affordable Housing Committee June meeting. Tonight we'll be checking in on the progress of some of our ongoing projects. We'll start with public comment, if there is any, approve our February minutes. Chuck will update us on the HOA covenant inventory. If Frederica is here, she will update us on some of the DRB happenings. And if not, she sent a little something there. I'll do a quick check-in on where I'm at with the housing report for 2024. And then also touch base on the work that the Planning Commission has just started, that they're calling enabling housing. And then any other kind of business or things that we need to touch base on and plan for next meeting. Does anyone need to make any changes to the agenda? No. And we have no public, so I'm going to move on to item 3, approving the February minutes. Do I have a motion to approve? Motion to approve. Thanks, Chuck. All those in favor say yes. Yes. Turns out we should have been saying yes this whole time and not I.
We have 5 members now.
5 members.
Okay, so we have a quorum.
Yeah. Okay. Chuck, take us away. What you got?
So I'm going to first describe what I've learned, and then hand out what I've learned, and then show you on a map. Working on a map. So what I found, well, I've got 485 homes with restrictive covenants. And that's about how many homes there were in Jericho in 1960. And we're at about 2,000 homes. So about a third of the homes that have been built. I think it's the majority of homes that have been built in the village district. I mean, I'm quite sure it's the majority of the homes built in the village district. In the 1960s, they tended to be deeded covenants, some of which cannot be changed. Then in like the late 60s and early 70s, they tended to be either deeded covenants that could be changed by a vote of whoever was affected, or through a homeowners association. The restrictions are quite consistent all the way through. It's single family homes with 2 exceptions. One is the foothills, you're allowed to have a guest house, which I assume is not an apartment, certainly not an ADU. And then there is one small development on a road where you're allowed to have an apartment. And I've sort of maintained them there's 4 of them. I maintained that on the list because it's not an ADU, it's like an apartment, in the house. All the other ones, they start out with kind of, we're doing this to preserve the rural character. And then it's, no chickens, no dogs, it's really, it's really kind of all about aesthetics and a restriction to single dwellings only. In most cases, the builder maintains control of the ability to make any amendments until the development is done. And then the homeowners association takes over. They tend to have, there's a little, I wouldn't say contradictory, they repeat themselves. They say, in most cases, the initial term of 20 years or 30 years, and then automatic extensions 10 years at a time. And the homeowner association can also amend them at any time with, in most cases, a supermajority of votes, 2/3 or 75. A couple things that were just sort of interesting, just reading through all of the records. I mean, it was really kind of, I got to know the history of many more families that I kind of know. And it was just interesting how many people started out in Sunnyview or Lafayette Drive, and then moved up to the foothills or moved up to somewhere else. You could see the flow from you can see the flow from of the starter home versus people moving up, and you can and that's choked off now. There were really a fairly small number of builders who did most of the building. I mean, Warren Palmer, Glenn Martin, the Bobies, the Whites, and there weren't that many law firms involved. It was kind of the same, like 3 or 4 law firms involved with the same kind of boilerplate. One of the things that really troubled me was that for almost all of them, the only signs you could put up would be a house for sale sign. You're not allowed to put up political signs. I don't think people pay any attention to that, but it's sort of an indication of I guess, what was in people's heads. The only exception was good old Beulah Muleman's project that's currently being built on Plains Road, where she specifically made an allowance for political signs, and also didn't put a restriction on, limiting to single-family homes. I feel like she would have built apartments if we had the zoning and if we had approached her. Still going on. I mean, the projects that are still being built have these restrictions. So, de Havilland, the new one on Orr Road, the new one on Morgan Road, it's still a thing.
And these are independent from whatever kind of agreement there is if you're on a shared community septic or a shared well. Are they independent, or is it all kind of mixed in together?
The homeowners agreements cover a lot of ground, and if there's a wastewater system, that's part of it. But you can amend. You can amend certain parts of it. I'm glad you brought that up. That was pretty interesting to me. The number of pretty large wastewater systems, like Clover Lane with 15 houses, Country View. There's 41 houses. They're not all on the septic.
We have like split in that neighborhood.
Right. Old Farm.
Yeah.
And is Old Farm on it?
We have our own on Old Farm.
Yeah. And not all the ones in Country View are on it.
Oh, okay.
So there's some unknown number there.
What was the first one you said?
Was Clover Lane. That's right. That's right across from Lafayette Drive. Tillotson Drive. There's 11 or 10 homes on it. There are some that have wastewater systems that are fairly recent that don't have restrictive covenants. White Oak, which is the one kind of across from Tyler Place on, but the Clover Lane doesn't have restrictive covenants either, but they're quite restrictive on your septic use. So, like, you've got your bedrooms And, you know, Country View, well, Country View has, you have the restrictive covenants where you live, but there are places that have septic and no restrictive covenants, but are kind of clear. We're not, this is, we're not, it's gonna be hard to add another unit here. You could probably chop off a room, you could probably divide up your house and make one. Which is what I wanted to do, is move one of my bedrooms into an apartment for my mother, which I wasn't allowed to do, but. There's a lot of,
So, I'm sorry, so the restrictions around,
like,
septic.
we have a wastewater system for 8 houses. You own 1/8 of it, you got 3 bedrooms. If you do anything more, you can't, it's like,
Yeah.
you're kind of on your own if you want to do any more. And the entire, or the majority of the homeowners would need to vote to expand the septic if you wanted to add an apartment. So even though there's not a restrictive covenant, there's a pretty big obstacle. So that's true for like Mansfield Estates, White Oak, Clover Lane. And I don't know I need to come up with another color for them, but it's like wastewater, whatever, I don't know, whatever you want to call it, the wastewater constrained. But, I mean, these are places that have, Clover Lane has, I think there's 15 houses, 14 of them, or 15 of them are on the septic. They're either 3 or 4 bedroom houses, so that's like 45 bedrooms on a wastewater system. So that's like half the size of what Wisdom House is proposing. And it's sort of this quiet little thing that somebody just sort of did it. And, it's really true that you don't have to, you simply don't, it's a lie that you have to have public wastewater in order to build attached housing. Because we're doing it for single family homes. In the triangle, the only developments that don't have these restrictions are Sunnyview and Pinehurst.
Do you know what? Do you have any suspicion about, is it a different builder? Is it the year that they were built?
I think that Sunnyview is a different builder. And the builder who wasn't gonna live, who doesn't live here. It's like the early ones, like Mountain View, down here, Mountain View, Mount Terrace, Mountain Heights, the Walsh, that little cluster down there. That was the Lawrences. So that's Helen Lawrence. You've seen her sign she's kind of in front of the Jericho Elementary School. She's got this plaque. She was on a school board. She was a hero. She helped build MMU. And she and her husband lived there. So they were basically selling off lots around their house. There were places where people would sell off lots and say, only single family homes for the next 10 years or the next 20 years. And after that, you can do whatever you want. But basically, for my lifetime, they were thinking about their lifetime. So I think Sunnyview was an out of town, was an out of town builder. He was also, it was the hockey houses. That was a builder that the town really didn't like. And there's talk in the minutes of in a reaction to the Sunnyview houses where the select board members were saying they only wanted to approve. They thought that they should only approve developments where the minimum selling price was $25,000, which is after Sunnyview's houses sold for 11,000. So there was a real, there was a real push. Like there's one development, I think it might be Ross Lane or one of those that said basically to the homeowners, you can amend this, but you also have to get permission from the select board because they made us do this. In terms of the single family homes, the minimum house price and sort of all that. So I think there was a real push from select, but this, you know, this is what the town wanted, this is what the town envisioned for itself. The other thing that I came to appreciate, the only one that is actually, there's two that have actually expired. One is Valley's Edge, which had restrictive covenants, and they expired in 2010. Their original development, they also planned some duplexes and a fourplex, which they then changed and turned them into single-family homes and had them add. But that one expired in 2010. And then there was lots on Skunk Hollow, including David White's, that had restrictions on only single-family homes, no chickens, no fences, no all that kind of stuff. And that one expired after 10 years. So his was expired. I mean, I'm just floored. Like, we kind of knew this was a problem, but we're not experts. It's like, why wouldn't, I just don't understand how, and this must be going on in other towns. I mean, how could our consultant that we paid these tens of thousands of dollars to, who had a restricted covenant on his own house, which was his second house. The first house had a restrictive covenant, that still does. Not really want to dig into this, as we were all saying, well, it's really hard to divide a half-acre lot with a house in the middle and build it, it's like, we have to like have a quarter-acre lot so that you can subdivide them. Well, you can't do that either. People couldn't build one. Anyway. So what I'm doing is I have this list. Right. So I have this list, I can give you a list that like has no impact to look at the list.
Yeah.
When you get the list, all you do is look for your own house. And so what I feel like, the other thing that I'm coming to appreciate is how much land has been set aside as part of the PUD. It's like you go by, you see a cluster of houses, and then look at a lot next to it and say, oh, well, I mean, well, you can't. So this is the, I'm getting really good at knowing all the roads and all that stuff. But the days of Jericho. And this is the triangle right here, this is a triangle, and this is Riverside. This is the Tetra lot right here. And so I'm coloring it in red where there's restrictive covenants for single family homes only. And then I'm filling in with blue land that the public owns or is otherwise not available, like the cemetery, the schools, the town forest. And this is the triangle. This is Mrs. Strang's land right here, she's 90, whatever. So that land is going to be going through some sort of a transition.
What road is that?
This is along Lee River Road. So this is a new farm that was just conserved.
So green is conserved or park.
Right. But a lot of this, I'm just getting going on this because, so I haven't been able to figure out. It's just like a puzzle putting together. You just get these little clues. You just kind of go to the next deed, the next deed, the next deed, the next deed. They'll refer to like previous deeds. You have to go back and find that one. So this right here is Black Walnut, which is a big area and a big issue, but I just simply haven't been able to figure it all out yet. And then this is Jericho East, and this is South Main Street. And I have a list of lots where there are covenants, but it's not all of them. So these were supposed to be commercial lots, and Glenn has, sold a bunch of lots for houses, and those, on many of those lots, there's restrictive covenant, so I've got to match up the lots with this map, which,
There's restrictive, on an individual lot or
No.
on like a group of 5, but they
It
may
just-
not be
it was,
contiguous.
like 10 non-consecutive numbers,
Okay.
and there's like 16 lots here. So I just gotta figure out which, so this will be a big red smudge after I figure it out, this will be a big red smudge. And then there's gonna be a lot more. The other thing I thought I would do is come up with another color and color in where there's already substantial multifamily housing. So like right here is a senior, Jericho Senior.
Mm-hmm.
No, right here. So, I don't think that's available. So, color that in. All this is, this is the land that was conserved to make Valley's Edge possible.
Mm-hmm.
I think to me, the takeaway is that, the, the projections for, first of all, this needs to inform where we're going with water and sewer. There's simply no point in investing in, we're not gonna get any housing, investing to bring sewer to places that don't allow more housing. And it could be that we need to go there because of fairness, but the deal can be, there could be some negotiating with the town. The other thing I've been doing is looking at the, like, in what way has the outcome for Jericho been different from other towns based on our exclusionary zoning policies? And by the way, the 2007 Jericho Town Plan messes up and describes what we've done as exclusionary zoning.
Hmm.
And then we had a change in select board membership, and then we got the most exclusionary zoning we ever had in 2015. But only 3% of Jericho dwellings are 1 bedroom. It's 12% in Richmond and 10% in Bolton, and most of it's typically around 10%, and it's 27% in Burlington. So for the county, it's 18% or 1 bedroom, only 3% in Jericho. I know I've said this to you before, we're 10 years older. Our median age is 10 years older than the county, but it's also 10 years older than Bolton, and Colchester, and South Burlington, and all these towns that do allow starter housing. So I think, anyway, sort of as an aside, the results are kind of in that we are an outlier, and we really are a different sort of town. The cause and effect is something that I suppose we can debate, but the results are in terms of the makeup of the town. The other thing is, with this map, like all the other maps we've had are colored, and Chris would kindly made this up for me, made me a small one with like nothing on it. And then I blew this up at Kinko's. But like, look at these lots. It's like, that is no longer an agricultural zone. I'm sorry, Skunk Hollow, you blew it. That is not an agricultural zone. You don't get to be agricultural because that's never going to be a farm.
So what is,
So I think where we're headed is, I'm gonna finish this, and there's two things that can happen. One is really make the case that, you know, basically our infill plan is just totally is bogus, number one. And number two, we need to start identifying where housing can go and, you know, change the zoning, but also be approaching like specific landowners. Like there's a big lot, right? Um, like, right here. I mean, I don't know what the soils are, but that lot is as big as Tetros, and it's right there, owned by a family. Name I've never heard of.
Where is it? What's the?
This is Tetros lot in Riverside, and this lot right here. It's on the other side, it's on the Riverside side of Valley's Edge. So if you picture Valley's Edge,
Okay.
two big fields on either side.
Like airport and the railroad go
No,
through?
no, that's over here. This is Villeneuve.
Okay.
So it's like, you know, there's like, where are the places where we can put, or where somebody could put some substantial. And this is where, you know, you sort of have to negotiate with, uh, um, you know, it's like somehow this thinking has to be meshed with the wastewater right now. And when the engineer was here in February, I asked, in the select board meeting, I asked him, he had this, you know, pretty aggressive schedule, pumping wastewater in 2029. Well, to do that, when do you need to know what neighborhoods the town wants served? He said, well, by the end of June. Well, I don't think they've even had a meeting yet.
Okay, but so that kind of gets to my bigger question, which is like what? I have two places my brain is going. One is thinking about the color coding map is one answer to it, but how to package this in a way that is meaningful, makes an argument, but is also makes all of this information digestible. And the other place my brain is going is, what is the point? I'm not saying what is the point, like, why are you doing this? But like, what do we want to do with this information? What is the push? How do we, what are the arguments? What are the?
We're gonna have substantial new housing in Jericho. It needs to be multifamily housing, not in the village centers. Or that needs to be in parallel with everything else that we're doing. It's like, if we want substantial new housing, it needs to be multifamily housing. And it's, number one, the infill is just, it's not gonna be infill in the village, you know, and just give up on that idea. We're gonna hopefully have a big chunk of housing here in Riverside, but it needs to be, you know, we need to have some substantial multifamily housing. Wastewater is not necessarily an obstacle. And, you know, we also need to, you know, allow multifamily housing on every lot, but we need like, you know, we need places with like 30, 40 homes.
So I agree with you that this is evidence, this is more evidence to add to the pile of evidence that we have, that infill and village centers isn't gonna make a dent in the housing targets. But I also think that like none of, as you said, none of these things are set in, none of these covenants, with the exception of a handful, are set in stone. And many of us don't even know that we have one. A majority of my community thinks that ours is expired and defunct and has never seen it before. And so if it is indeed, if these things are indeed restrictive, it seems like there's a there's an argument to be made for folks to be like, did you know that you're in a covenant? Did you know that it's restrictive? Did you know that you can change it?
Yeah.
And identifying maybe the biggest bang for our buck and the covenants or the communities that maybe would be best, would be the best candidates for infill. And going to them first. I like the idea of, if there is going to be wastewater and you hooking up to wastewater, then, you know, kind of the same approach that we took with the public roads, like you know, you don't get to benefit from this if your community isn't in line with.
Yeah, I'm pleased that the select board is sort of picking up on that theme. Because I complained to Eric that, the town is just voted to approve repaving Sunny Ridge. The development where, Wayne lives. Got restrictive covenants, it's like, I don't know what, 9 or 10 houses there. We're paving that road and and Brown's Brace is falling apart with like potholes. It's like, you gotta be kidding me. Why are we doing that? And then a couple of meetings later, they were looking at paving another road, another similar situation, and he brought it up as an issue. And, I think. I think the prevailing view is, well, it's our road, we've been doing it for a long time, blah, 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 but, I think that message is starting to, to sink in.
So where are you at, kind of in this process? Are you finished with data collection?
No, well, I'm done with, well, what I don't know is whether there's a lot of individuals homes. I've covered all the major developments. I have not figured out South Main and Black Walnut. I think I want to come up with another category, which is wastewater constrained. And then find out more of the lots that are protected by PUDs. So, some of which don't have restrictive covenants. So this is Belva's development on Plains Road, where there's eight houses, 5-bedroom houses permitted for right there, but they don't have restricted covenants, but it's a PUD where housing is not allowed on the rest of the land. So there's kind of a bunch of those. So I think there's just more, more spaces to fit in. And I think people will, well, it certainly got me thinking down to like a little bit more of kind of the specific lot, specific places.
Well, in the PUD is, I mean, that's kind of tricky, like that's done, right? I mean, that land is that's it.
Right, and we just need to be, I think we need to first be aware of our whole PUD thing needs to be redone. And so we just need to be like aware of, what are the real, doing, PUD. So here's, doing PUDs on Browns Trace Road. In I think PUDs in a 3-acre zone. I mean, here's one right here. This is the 8 houses that are going in on Morgan Road. And then here is all the conserved land. So this was a big hunk of what the Chittenden County Regional Planning gave us for like a growth area. Well, this was it. This was the growth area. Well, it has huge impacts. You know, like this is Tyler Place. This is all conserved. This part is really high quality ag soil, so I'm delighted about that. I don't know about the quality of soils here. So yeah, I'm gonna fill in more, you know, and maybe so that land that is available for multifamily housing, we can kind of just see where it is.
Yeah.
I wish we had this when uh, I wish I had done this before the question of the map came through.
From CCRPC?
Yeah,
I
But I'm-
mean, you wouldn't have had any influence on that
well, I met with them and I asked them for, you know, I mean, maybe not, but.
I mean, I just, well, I guess that's not a fair thing to say. What I mean by that is the areas that matter in terms of being tied to funding opportunities, et cetera, were already set in stone, and those borders were so difficult to budge. I mean, we did what we could, but that had already.
Well, we should have done a letter saying we refuse, you know, like you can impose this map on it, but, you know, we don't, you're wrong. We're a little too agreeable. I mean, well, I met with them and I said, please give me an example where infill is added to a neighborhood of half acre to 1 acre lots. And they did not have one, even though it is the core of their whole smart growth.
Mhm,
It's like, you have no examples.
mhm.
Like people living in cars and you're relying on a whole theory that has no evidence anywhere
Mhm.
in America.
All right, anything else on this? This is a huge amount you had fun with this, haven't you? Like, this is kind of a fun project.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I feel like it's the argument I have been making. I mean, Chris has been saying, you know, I believe you, but it's all anecdotal.
Yeah,
And he's been very encouraging on this. I mean, in terms of like what happens to it, it's going to go to Chris, and I think it'll inform his thinking.
yeah.
Um, and Wayne Howe has been quite, because you know Wayne was always saying, I just don't understand it. We went to quarter acre, nothing happened, and well, here's one reason why.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, I'm driving around a little bit. You drive around like Ross Lane or Snowflake or Valley's Edge. Infill is simply not how they see the old farm. This is not simply how you see yourselves. Foothills, do you see yourself as an infill community?
Yeah. Well, it's funny because I do think about it every time I walk around, and I do see places where there could be.
Yeah, I mean,
There's-
the septic is the issue for, you know, I think we could totally do an ADU, but. Like, no.
But-
Yeah, there's tons of space, it's just.
There are definitely spots where we could plop down houses in foothills for sure.
It's interesting, in some of these developments, each house has their own septic, but they're all on a single field. So
Huh.
there's like right here, right?
Oh. Reminded me of a question.
So instead of get into like all these easements, well, your sewer pipe is gonna cross 3, you know, it's like those 4 houses in a row on Plains Road, and the septics all go to the 5th lot, which is the conserved lot.
So some of these places.
So where you are, it's like, we have to match this up with like, okay, where's the map? Okay, and where's the soils map? It's like your septic does not have to be on your property. If it's something the neighborhood wanted. And the richer we get, the less likely we are to see ourselves as living in infill neighborhoods, and less empathetic we are to the problem.
The The places that have a shared septic, so 10 to 15 houses, or even maybe up to the 40s that you were talking about. Is that, oh my God, my children need to stop.
Let me talk to them.
No. I will, oh my God. Like only in case of emergency, I'm busy, only reach out if it's.
Tell them to join the
emergency.
meeting.
A number of times. Oh, no, that would be even worse. Are those are those systems in leach fields the same? Like, do they have the same life expectancy? Like, are there some of these that are going to fail soon? It's gonna be time to re-up. It could be a time to make a bigger. Or is it, big enough where they've got the two leach fields next to each other and they just kind of pass back and forth so that they live forever?
I think that's why we hired a consultant.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, anything else on this? This is awesome.
Yeah,
I feel like I really got to know the town
very impressive.
even better. Um, there's some that are just like this one up here. This is new.
Yeah.
8 houses.
Was revenue,
Huh?
restricted company.
Restricted, yeah.
8 houses, single family only.
Was there anything, anything in any of these covenants that jumped out in terms of equity? I mean, I know you were looking through them specifically for exclusionary zoning and housing and infill, but were there
It was-
any things?
I
that
think
you
what was, I
still
think
there
it
that-
was, we're all in this to maximize our property values. It's like we are all looking at each other and you're not gonna cut any trees, you're not gonna put up any fences without approval, you're not gonna have any commercial vehicles. You're not gonna have a store. You're allowed to do, a normal home occupation, a professional one, but you're not allowed to sell anything. Not allowed to have any customers come to your house. There's some where you're not, there's like a leash law. The fines that they can charge each other for, if your house is unkempt, we can fix it up and charge you. It was, and then what I pictured was a developer who's doing, is building 9 houses. It's like, how do they sell the first 2 or 3 lots? You have to guarantee them that all 9 are gonna be the same. It was, and it was really no livestock, no dog breeding.
You might want to consider bringing this to the DEI committee too. I wonder if they'd be interested in, if we were to decide to move forward on some kind of informational campaign, if they'd be interested in partnering.
Something that people, select board have mentioned it or somewhere, the idea of model, model covenants.
We talked about that a lot,
Yeah.
and the
I don't
town lawyer
think any of them are
just
needed.
about passed out when
Yeah, I
she
don't.
heard about it, so.
Yeah, well, she's not on our side,
No, but I think that is one of the reasons why, like, this doesn't get touched and doesn't get talked about, because it's not something that, my experience at least has been that it's not something that the town lawyers, that BLCT, that CCRPC want to go anywhere near.
Well, I think the bigger issue is that people are just extremely comfortable in their neighborhoods. It's like, this is.
Well, and I think that's why I'm saying, like, I think that a community outreach campaign will be more effective.
It's gonna take an activist it's gonna take activists.
Yeah.
Who, it's like, it's almost too much trouble for someone who wants to add an ADU, you know,
Mhm.
it's like, brother. Why do I, I mean, we have our own informal DRB in Jericho Center. I mean, there's people who try stuff and neighbors object, they just drop it.
Mhm.
There's, it's a bunch of people in houses that are all kind of the same, all kind of looking at each other. And the idea of someone doing something different that might jeopardize my property value or create, just doing something different. I mean, well, you guys live these places. I would go nuts.
Like I said, I don't even know that it's there. Didn't even know it was there. And when I've asked about it, the people that have lived there the longest are like, oh, that doesn't even, that's it. It's run out of.
What if-
It is not a governing thing unless someone, and we've got plenty of examples of homes that go against many of those. We've got commercial trucks in people's driveways and we've got,
Ed, what's his name?
Hmm?
Ed with all the Kubotas.
Well, there was Charlie.
Yeah, Charlie, that's what.
And then
Charlie.
there's the garbage dump truck.
Tourville.
And then, yep, and then my neighbor works for natural gas.
What would happen in your neighborhood if someone wanted to turn their house into a fourplex?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, they fought really hard and won against the new buildings or the new homes that went into Norton Lane. Those were supposed to be multifamily. That was before
They were what?
my time. They were supposed to be multifamily. I can't remember if they were supposed to be triplexes.
And Tilson, and for those people who fought that,
That's my understanding. I was buried under babies at the time, but so now we have 1, 2, 3
yeah, 3 enormous
very
houses,
large.
yeah, with
Beautiful,
with
but-
no restrictive covenants.
Oh, that's interesting.
Mhm.
And they each have their own well and they each have their own septic. But anyway,
So that isn't even in the that isn't even in the foothills.
no, and they still fought it. They were really angry that the road came off of Foothills, got cut off of Raceway, and then, yeah, I don't know. Like I said,
We're
it was
concerned
right-
about traffic. They're concerned about traffic, but we're fine making low income
this
people
is-
live 20 feet from the road.
This is why by right is important, but your point to there being like your own DRB and Jericho Center. I mean, I think all neighborhoods kind of have that.
Yeah, I think it's gonna, for one to actually change.
But at least in Foothills, our ownership is almost completely turned over now. So none of the original, or very few of the original owners are still there. Not none, but very few.
Yeah, it's over 50 years.
And so I think now would be a time when people would be open to that. You know,
What if I were to just publish a list of all those developments that have them? Think that would piss people off?
you might.
Information,
Pardon?
it's just information.
It wouldn't
Well, I
affect-
feel like most of the people that live there didn't come up with the covenant, so they're just like.
But how about if I talked about,
I
Well-
say it might because your delivery is sometimes
Controversial, maybe.
sometimes set the tone that
Yeah.
that makes.
do I want to
people
shame them?
defensive.
Yes.
Yeah, and I don't. You know that I don't think that that's the right
And
tactic.
how long has
That's-
Eric, no, what's Eric doing? Eric has known this for years.
I've known this for
You've known it
years,
for
and I
years.
haven't.
What's it gonna take?
It's gonna take an activist to do the work. It's gonna take
Do you go,
somebody else bringing me the thing, giving me an outline of what I have to do. Pointing on the dotted line where I have to sign. Giving me the letter that I need to circulate to my neighbors. Like, I don't have the bandwidth to do it, and I haven't this whole time, and I think. I mean, you can shame me for that, but that's ridiculous. And so in trying to think about what is effective, what is more effective than shaming people is making it as easy as possible.
I feel like we've talked about that before, right? It's like,
So-
here's how the steps
Yeah.
for like how to look at your HOA.
Well,
covenant,
you have an
change
HOA, you
it.
have a board of directors on your HOA. Do you go to the?
We don't have that. We have a president, we have a treasurer. Nothing happens. We all write a check quarterly for our septic, and that is the only thing that occurs.
Right, but,
We don't even have that.
but
Yeah,
if you look at your association, they're responsible for a number of things.
that's the septic.
Uh,
According to what my understanding is, like, that's what we can't have chickens, I know that, we can't have clothesline.
Right, so
But
it's,
no one is having discussions ever, not since we've lived there.
I understand that, but if someone were to have chickens, it would be their job to enforce that covenant.
Like, I don't know who would, is what I'm saying, like, I don't think.
I'm saying I'm saying that it is their job. If you were to go to them and say,
But who is the
Who's
them?
the them?
the president and they're elected, right? You elect them.
We've been there 9 years, we've never elected anybody.
Okay, well, they are. You should-
And the guy who's president doesn't live there like 75%. So it's like,
Well, you should, I've been reading these things. They are elected. And you could ask them, I mean, I'm sure they have a lawyer, they have, it's a function, it's an incorporated thing. They're filing a tax return. And,
So ours
You-
is not. Ours is, we do not have an HOA. We have the Prudential Committee that does our water, and that's it.
you have a fire district.
That's it. But the HOA, there is no governing body, there is no enforcing body, there is no body. The only active group is the Prudential Committee for our well. And that is a separate entity. Because that's who I reached out to first.
So the way, if I was in one of these and wanted to change it, I would look at what exists and edit it. And then go to, maybe get a few other people. And if there is nobody, just go to a lawyer and draw up a new set of covenants. And
But I think that is, so what you, the knowledge that you have and looking at all of these, because it sounds like there's maybe a handful of flavors and they're all kind of copy and paste. Or at least there's a handful of flavors in terms of how to change, amend, or get rid of them.
what if we were to have a clinic
Exactly.
where there was an attorney who could read each one and then meet with each, people from each
Mm-hmm.
in turn.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. We need to bring to them.
Except for the town lawyer, who was, thank God, get rid of her. And the idea that she is gonna do the real estate acquisition for the wastewater, just,
So, but this is why I think it's worthwhile talking to DEI and getting some more energy or some more resources and thinking about how to go about doing this. And do you have a copy of each of them? Sweet.
almost all of them. I printed a lot of them here. And then to print them at home, it costs $3 a page. So I probably spent like $500 printing. And there was some were really, when I was at home, I just didn't print because they were just like 50 pages. But a few more I can print. Well, here I can print them for free. Yeah, I have a stack.
Yeah, I think a clinic is a good idea. I think, you know, I think about
Who pays for the lawyer?
having an example of,
Yeah.
yeah, and that the town probably will not touch. I wonder if it's worth talking to representate, I wonder if it's worth talking to Acacia or an Edie or, I don't know, but I think these are the things that are,
I have a hunch we're worse in a lot of places, but I think it's probably a problem in a bunch of places.
absolutely. And I think it's on, I mean, it's on their radar at Montpelier. It's on their radar at CCRPC. But there's this real reluctance to do anything because it
Affects rich people.
affects rich people and it's a legal, you have a right to be able to do that. All right. Can we close this out?
Sure.
I think we've been like circling this for Daisy, like 2 years. And haven't been able to make any progress on it. So this is kind of exciting.
Yeah, have something tangible. Great.
Yeah. And I can imagine that, you know, the 500 different town meeting that we have. I can imagine having a table of like, hey, come over and find your covenant. Take a look at it. I think that there's a whole thing that we can, a whole project that we can do there. But I do think that community outreach and activism is better than public shaming and will be more effective. And I think that, again, as a person who has
Well,
a
people have to
vested,
know that it's a global problem. I think people may feel like, well,
yes,
when I talk to people in Tillotson Drive, it's like, oh, yeah. But
Yeah.
they have no idea that they're part of a systemic problem.
exactly. And I think we can
And I think,
inform people of
I
that.
mean, call it something other than shaming, but making it clear the magnitude of the problem. You know, we're talking like 500 homes.
Yeah.
Most of them, where the towns wants to put middle and low income people.
And again, as a person who has been aware of this and thinks about this, I have not done anything in my community about it. And so I do think that making it as easy as possible and bringing the solution to people is important if we want to see something change or happen. All right, Frederica just sent in in an email an update because she wasn't sure she'd be able to make it this evening. The two big happenings at the DRB is the first a minor subdivision of the Rivers property, which is owned by the Underhill Jericho Fire District.
Of the what property?
Rivers?
It's still the house that's across from the bar.
And basically they want to create a 6+ acre parcel that contains just the current residence. I think that this is already done.
I think it's been done for a
Because
while.
that residence just was sold.
Yeah.
It's one of the affordable home sales that I have in my report. So that was old news. And then the other one, which again, I think is in a similar situation, is 91 Governor Peck, which we've talked about in here a few times. So the 9-lot subdivision PUD was approved February 25th. The largest lot can be further subdivided in the future for a total of 13 lots. Pitiful. They ended up not applying for a density bonus. Which I think,
Yeah.
and one of the things that Frederica pointed out, which I think is worth noting too, is that it's, each lot will come with its own well and sewer. Okay, anything else on DRB? So the housing report, so the housing report is for 2024, so it summarizes 2024. At this point, I can share it so that we have something to look at, I guess. At this point, I haven't gotten into the building permits and the certificates of occupation yet. Although the building permits, I was looking through the building permits and there are 5 for ADUs from 2024. But I need to go in and
I think that we should be reporting on occupancy permits and not so much permits.
we do,
Yeah.
so that's fine.
So I think the last time we,
We did both.
right, but a lot of them didn't happen.
Certificates of occupancy didn't have.
No, the permitted ones didn't happen. We,
Well, permits are, yeah, I mean,
right, so why, I think it distorts.
I disagree. I don't think it distorts anything. I think it's another data point, and I agree, it's a data point that can be used to say something about what you might expect for the future, but I agree that a building permit does not equal a dwelling in a predictable time period. Anyway, so I do think though that it's worthwhile pointing out that there were 5 permits for new ADUs in town,
For what?
new ADUs.
And how many were completed?
Don't know, Chuck.
Oh,
I'm talking about the permit,
oh, okay,
and I haven't looked at the certificates of occupancy.
okay.
When you were talking about one bedrooms and how few one bedroom dwellings we have in Jericho compared to some of our neighbors, I wonder if some of that is a reflection of how small our rental market is.
That's, that's why a rental market is. When you say rental market, you mean the demand?
The number of rental units we have in Jericho is super small, and rental units are often one bedroom.
Right. Or 2
And
bedroom.
so I wonder if there's an association there.
Oh, absolutely.
That helps explain why we have so fewer one bedroom compared to some of our neighboring communities.
No, I think it's the reverse. I think we have a low rental because we have few one bedrooms. It's not lack of demand.
No, I'm not suggesting that it is.
Right, okay. We have fewer rental units because we have fewer rental units because we have fewer one bedrooms.
I think they measured a similar thing, yeah. So the rental data is really bad. We don't have a rental registry, so it's really difficult to track this. So they're really just estimates. The number of rental units and the percentage of households that were rental units decreased from 2020 to 2023. So we're at 8% of our housing stock is rental.
And where does that come from?
That is, let's see, US Census Bureau, the data lives on, the VHFA's housing data website, and all of that data comes from
The census,
the census and a few other places.
which is based on a community survey.
Yeah, and again, like it's the data is bad for Vermont because we don't track rentals very well. Also what rentals we do have are expensive compared to the rest of Chittenden County. And I didn't do the math to see what the fold increase was from 2020 to 2023 in Jericho compared to the county overall, but
I think it'd be great to compare that number to neighboring towns.
What do you think are good neighboring towns to compare to for rentals in particular? Bolton and Richmond?
Bolton, Richmond, Essex Town.
But this is a place where the rental conversation just often never happens, or just gets ignored. I think it's really critical and something that we need to talk about every time we talk about Riverside. Short-term rentals in terms of some other towns and other areas in Jericho is not that bad for other towns in Vermont isn't that bad for Jericho.
I go on Airbnb sometimes and just see what's available. In Jericho, I don't put a date down, so I get all of them.
Yeah.
There's certainly not many that could be rental properties. It's like a shared bedroom, or it's like an enormous house. Or it's,
yeah, and they fluctuate a lot. Again, like I don't know how good this data is. I feel like this data might actually be better, but when you look at it, they track it by month. And it's kind of all over the map. We tend to fluctuate between like 10 and 20 short-term rentals, and it used to be kind of more in the tens, in the teens in 2020, and now for 2024 we got up to 17 rental units, but so it kind of trends, but it's like all over the place. But and then in terms of the housing sales for 2024, it looks a lot like it did in 2023. So about 20% of the homes sold in Jericho last year were affordable to low and middle income households. So they were less than 450,000. And those 10, one of the ways that we talked about it last year was in terms of naturally occurring affordable housing features. And so, for example, 9 out of those 10 homes that were affordable were in a village center or village. 4 of them were condos. 7 of them were on a half acre or less. 8 of the 10 were 2,000 square feet or less. Many of them were like 1,100, 1,300.
What's the typical house? I mean, if we do the same metric and say when were they built, the houses that were built in the 60s were 1,000 square feet.
So the newest of the 10 affordable homes was 1994, and those were condos.
Right.
You're right. The houses that are on this list are very old. Some of them
Which is why
100 years old.
Which is why they're cheap.
Mm-hmm.
They're falling down. I mean, I think it'd be really interesting to look at those 10 and just see, you know, like there's a house on Plains Road for sale right now for like $250,000 that is just like falling down.
Mhm.
And, you know, someone's gonna buy it and it'll show up as an affordable, but
Half of them have 2 or fewer bedrooms. And 8 out of the 10 have either water or septic as a public or shared utility. So none of that is news, but it's just reinforcing that small
there has been no
size,
improvement.
small acres. No, there has been no improvement. Lot size, footprint, waste and water, small bedrooms. Not only do these things exist already in Jericho, the condos especially turn over so fast. There is such a demand for those condos. They are on the market for a handful of days, if that. So, and you're right, some of the houses, some of the single family houses that are a bit bigger, so those that have more than 2 bedrooms are incredibly old and falling apart.
So that's, you know, kind of qualified affordable.
Yeah, so I'll pull together the and do a deep
Are you
dive
ready to send a draft?
on the certificates. No, I haven't done the certificates of occupancy yet. I haven't done the building permits yet.
I think the zoning section of the website is just not kept up to
It
date.
is not kept up to date, which makes it hard to do. So is it all right if I plow on to the next thing, which is
Sure.
enabling housing? So, the select board from our last report, from last year's housing report, we made 9 suggestions or recommendations to the select board. Pushed and had them publicly go through each of those recommendations, and they recommended all 8 of the zoning regs recommendations that the planning commission do those. Sorry, that was not a sentence. One of the recommendations was about fee structure. And that's something that's under the select board purview, so not the planning commission purview. So planning commission is now starting to take those recommendations and a host of other kind of things that the planning commission has come across, especially when they just went over the regs for this last set of changes that they weren't able to make in the last set of changes, that they wanted to kind of earmark as housing, and we want to come back to that. And so a lot of those changes are changes to districts outside of village centers. So that work is just kind of in the visioning stages. And I think that they are happy to and looking to partner with us and work and have us work with them on that. But I think you know, if we want to let them drive, we can let them drive that partnership, or we can be more assertive about it. But that's just in the early
Well,
stages.
that's whatever the best way for me to be involved in. I want to be involved.
Yeah.
And what we have to be ambitious for we have to be ambitious. And we need a big hunks of housing. And it's gonna be in a place that people don't expect.
So the town planner, Chris Sheen, awesome. I just like him a lot personally. And he's good at his job. But he is a very methodical, process-oriented person. He lays out a map. He wants to accumulate evidence and write a report and have data that he can point to justify this, that, and the other thing. And so I think one of the things that we need to do, especially going back through those 8 recommendations, is you and Frederica did the bulk of that research and thinking and kind of getting back into that and seeing what to share and how to share it to be effective and push them as in.
I think
In
the
the
thing that's
direction
gonna
we
be the
want.
hardest for them is, redoing the PUD.
Mhm.
And, Chris, I think, supports what we proposed. Basically, we're saying is that with PUD, you can add as many small houses as you want to a lot without adding more land.
Yeah.
And I think that solves the problem of, I mean, we can keep the 10-acre zone that way, that people feel really strongly about it. But this is, yeah, this is gonna require some leadership from the select board also.
The other thing I think, for us to be thinking about, so not only is, process and evidence and building up a solid case to support some of the more ambitious suggestions. The other thing I worry about is, Chris likes to have a really clear, defined scope at the start of a project, and is really strict about kind of sticking to that
One thing
scope.
we need to make clear is that those were supposed to be quick, do it now suggestions, things that could be done while the town, was spending 5.5 years doing the village center. And so those 9 suggestions are not the end all and be all or whatever. Like those were supposed to be quick and easy. So if this is gonna be like the complete review of everything outside the village center, we need to be more ambitious.
Well,
We need to express.
I think my point is that it's not the big ambitious, what are all of the things that we can fix? And so we need to be really clear. I think the eight recommendations themselves are all within the purview of the scope. But we really need to be clear on like what are the non-negotiables, or what are the priorities that we really want to push and make sure get in the scope.
Well,
And I understand that they are supposed to be 8 recommendations that like should be quick and easy, and that's just not how.
I understand, but they spent 5.5 years on the village centers. And insist on doing everything down to regulating which windows you can put in an air conditioner. And then we say, well, we're just gonna do something quick and dirty the rest of town, forget about it, that's not acceptable, they need to.
Well, Chris doesn't do anything quick and dirty, so. So yeah, I don't really have anything to report there other than just kind of foreshadowing.
Okay. Well-
And I think, one of the things that we'll talk about at the end is planning for the next meeting, but just as I want to make sure that, I guess I want to know, are we flexible enough to meet again in a month? If planning commission is moving forward so that we don't lose out on something. All right, anything else?
But just for the record, the housing committee has not taken a position on the current zoning proposal. So if I oppose it, I'm not going against any recommendation that the housing committee has taken.
As long as you are Chuck. Jericho Chuck, then yes. If you're affordable housing committee Chuck, then no.
Well, the housing committee didn't take a position.
Nope. Okay, any other business reports, things to talk about?
Well, for anybody who lives in the village center and wishes they lived closer to the road. Haven't found one yet.
Okay, so I think in order to remain an active committee, we have to meet quarterly, which is kind of what we're doing anyway. So that would mean that our next meeting would need to be either September 9th or October 14th. Do either of you know that either of those dates won't work for you? I will poll other committee members, but
I'm pretty sure September would be better for me.
okay.
It was September.
September 9th or October 14th.
Is the day after Indigenous Peoples' Day, or whatever.
Okay,
If I'm
But it's
walking,
not a
I'm out of the
holiday.
country then.
It is not a holiday, but
you
in terms of not traveling or.
Okay, all right, so we'll shoot for September 9th based on the people in this room, but TBD. And I imagine at the September 9th meeting, there'll be a housing report for y'all to either edit or approve as is. I imagine you'll have made some more progress on this. And there'll be some planning commission stuff. Oh my gosh, guys, it's 8:30. Is there anything else that we need to touch base on?
No, I'm gonna send a digital of this chart to everybody on the committee now, marked draft.
This one that you shared?
Yeah,
Awesome.
draft is 6:10.
All right, well then I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
To adjourn.
Has anybody had any more communication with Frederica other than?
No.
the
I haven't.
emails? So the sister-in-law would be her.
You want a second? Are you ready to adjourn, Chuck?
Yeah.
All right, all those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Yes. Chuck, you good?
Yeah.
Okay.